Today we are going to provide you with a synopsis of HBR's ArmyCrew Case, then identify what we believe the underlying performance problems are, analyze critical contributing factors, and provide a final recommendation. Additionally, we will reflect on how this specific case can provide insights and lessons for similar team scenarios. However, before we jump into the case, we feel it is important to help you understand the basics of this year-round intercollegiate sport. Crews of 2 to 8 members row lightweight boats through the water. The sport requires incredible strength, endurance, and technique, and a significant amount of team coordination. In this sport, there are no individual rewards, and success is solely based on the performance of the team. Successful crews master the art of synchronization. The case described rowing as the equivalent of 8 guys all trying to perfect the golf swing at the same time, all together, 200 times in a row. If an individual makes an error, team members must trust that the individual will self-correct. If teammates attempt to compensate for the error of others, the balance of the boat will be thrown off, decelerating the boat. Now that you know the basics of crew, let's move on to the specific performance challenges facing the Army Crew team at West Point during the spring season of 2002. The Army Crew team coach was initially very excited about the start of the season, while Coach Przewiecki, or as we'll refer to him in the rest of this presentation as Coach P, was challenged with selecting the top 8 rowers for the varsity and JV boats. Coach P meticulously evaluated the team members' individual strengths, techniques, and endurance using systematic data from tests and intra-team races. After a week retreat of rigorous seat racing, the strongest and most skilled 8 rowers became apparent from the statistics. Coach P confidently announced the team, and both the varsity and JV teams were established. And while the newly established varsity team beat the JV team in their first match, some varsity members were overly critical of their boat's performance, stating that they should have won by a larger margin. This confused Coach P, and he began a painstaking evaluation process, including racing pairs of JV against varsity and switching members in boats. However, it was only when the JV team was comprised of its original members did the JV beat varsity. This became a frequent occurrence, with JV beating varsity 2/3 of the time. Eager to identify why the varsity team was continually being beat by the JV team, Coach P developed an extensive performance matrix to analyze the strengths and psychological and emotional components contributing to the athlete's performance. As a result, he found there was no apparent leader on varsity and several disruptors. However, there were no disruptors on JV, and they displayed great potency with a "we can" attitude. The coach was aware of an Olympic study emphasizing the importance of the psychological factors in crew performance. So he brought in an expert from the Center of Enhanced Performance to engage both teams in exercises aimed at addressing attitudes and beliefs and enhancing confidence and concentration. JV embraced the CEP training, while varsity was skeptical and labeled it as touchy-feely. Coach P also opened up lines of communication by encouraging team members to email each other with encouragement, and requested that if they had any ideas for improvement or criticism to email him. The communication from JV was encouraging and inspirational. Unfortunately, communication from varsity was filled with finger-pointing and negativity. As the season progressed, the JV team developed strong cohesion and became energized by their performance. Yet the varsity continued to grow frustrated and angry, often ending their practice by criticizing each other. With only 4 days until the national championship race, Coach P could still not answer why varsity continued to lose to JV, when varsity's individual strength and endurance scores were clearly better than the JV individuals. There were 3 options available to the coach. He could switch the varsity and JV boats and race the winning JV boat instead in the national championship. He could continue to reconfigure the boats by switching individual boat members, or he could keep on intervening to improve the varsity performance. On the slide, you will see that we have adapted Thompson's framework as presented in our 421 intensive class. This framework gives a comprehensive view to analyze teamwork. The ArmyCrew case is about team performance. It is a typical scenario where greater individual performance does not necessarily equal greater team performance. Thus, we will focus on the right side of the chart of Thompson's team performance analysis model. In this model, there are 4 factors to evaluate the success or failure of a team's effort: productivity, cohesion, individual growth, and organizational gain. Productivity is the ability to state goals. Cohesion is the process that keeps members of a team united. Individual growth measures if team members can meet their individual learning and development objectives, and organizational gain refers to how the team benefits the larger organization. We believe the performance issues varsity is encountering are not related to individual learning objectives or organizational gains, but rather whether the goals and accountability are clear and if varsity can synchronize their row. Therefore, we will focus on productivity and team cohesion. Let's look at productivity first. The following list of questions assist us to diagnose productivity. First, does the team have a clear goal? According to LaFausto and Larson, the most important determinant of success is whether the team has a clear and elevated goal. Varsity's goal is definitely winning, but is not specific enough compared to JV's goal of success together or fail together, or row for every guy in the boat, as they had communicated. We know the lack of clear goals, clarity, or appropriateness can lead to process conflicts, erosion of trust, and eventually relationship conflict. So the next question, does each team member have clear accountability? In the case, Coach P used time performance and success against other team members to measure success, but both of these measures are based on team performance. Due to the lack of individual performance accountability, team members may assume they are putting in more effort than their teammates, which is what the varsity team communicated. The next question, are there consequences? And what are they for team members if the goal is not reached? Basically, there aren't any consequences for varsity outside of embarrassment. They believe that they will race the varsity in the varsity championship regardless because they were selected. So also look at structure. According to Coach P's analysis, no clear leader emerged in varsity. Given the nature of the sport, we believe a boat leader who can coordinate and energize the team is required for performance optimization. While looking at productivity provided us a helpful insight into the varsity's challenges, a deeper look into cohesion proves even more insightful. According to research done by Gillespie and Birnbaum and Moore, team cohesion is a consistent predictor of team performance. This is particularly important given the nature of rowing. The varsity members did not enjoy working together. When they met, they sat far apart. When they were dismissed, they didn't want to spend one extra minute together. The varsity team definitely had a cohesion issue. We have identified the most relevant 4 levels that can assist us in shaping or destroying team cohesion. They are trust, conflict, team identity, and intergroup rivalry. According to Thompson, trust refers to the willingness to rely on each other in the absence of observation. There is a definite trust issue on the varsity team. During the last meeting in the case, several varsity members argued that they were carrying the boat alone, and others were responsible for the poor performance. Conflicts are not all negative, but when task conflict elevates into relationship conflict, it can definitely cause harm to the team cohesion and team performance. Varsity's conflicts started out as tasks, but due to the lack of early intervention, the conflicts elevated to relationship conflicts. The feedback process on the varsity team became a finger-pointing process, and team members became more and more subjective, often challenging the legitimacy of each team member's existence on the team. According to Thompson, team identity is the extent to which people feel their group membership is an important part of who they are. The varsity members had a strong sense of belonging as soon as they were initially selected. However, when they started to lose to the JV team, varsity became so disappointed they began to lose group potency and collective efficacy. Unfortunately for varsity, without either performance elements, their team confidence evaporated. Coach P created rivalry between varsity and JV upon the initial team forming stages. During their face-off, the JV chants, "Nothing to lose," but varsity was in a lose-lose situation. If they won, it was normal. If they lost, they would be embarrassed. Team rivalry is often designed to give teams pressure to perform and excel. But if competition becomes too strong, it can inhibit cooperation and lead to dysfunction. In our evaluation, we considered how Coach P could intervene to ensure varsity reaches their performance potential. The research of Wagman and Donnerfield distinguished 4 kinds of interventions to improve the quality of conflict resolution. Team redesign, which is the ability to change the structure in which the team works. For this case, team redesign may include redefining the goals, clarifying consequences for not meeting the goals, and setting team norms, and breaking existing team mental models, particularly around conflict and feedback. Team process coaching helps the team perform better via changes in effort, strategy, and the knowledge, skills, and ability of the team members. For this case, because the varsity team members had already proven excellent strength and skills, improving the psychological strengths through reinforcing the CEP training is critical. Conflict process coaching refers to direct intervention of the conflict a team is experiencing. Coach B asked the varsity to figure out what their issues were in their final meeting, which is a start to addressing that conflict. Given West Point is a military institution, Coach P could consider the after-action reports, or AAR. These AARs is a common military feedback practice expected of officers. This formal process could assist in eliminating constant finger-pointing and guide varsity towards learning from mistakes or missing opportunities. Changing the individuals is an individual level training with the goal of making specific team members more capable to tolerate and solve conflicts. The varsity had a few members identified as disruptors. Assessments like Hogan's could help team members build awareness on their potential derailers and may trigger individual changes. The proposed interventions could be useful in addressing team conflicts and may have served Coach P throughout the season. However, with only 4 days to determine which team to race, he has to consider whether varsity can achieve cohesion to produce synchronization and the psychological will to win before the race. Unfortunately, the varsity team may be experiencing the phenomenon known as Team Halo. Given the varsity team continues to attribute failures to individuals, they are having difficulty seeing it as a group or team performance problem. In this case, Varsity has yet to learn anything and therefore are unlikely to change their behavior. On the other hand, JV demonstrated a strong team cohesion. As you can see on this slide, snippets from email messages circulated among the JV team. From their emails, we can see that JV's unity is strong, and you can feel their trust. The JV team members were not even interested in moving up to varsity. They preferred staying on JV. The inter-team rivalry had also been favorable to the JV team. As stated, they truly didn't have anything to lose. Therefore, winning 2/3 of the race against varsity only strengthened their team identity. Additionally, the JV team had a great practice of giving feedback. Team members did not criticize one another, but made global comments on ways for improvement. By leveraging an adapted version of Thomson's team performance analysis model, we specifically analyzed team productivity and cohesion. In both productivity and cohesion, JV consistently outperformed varsity. Therefore, we are recommending the benching of varsity and the racing of JV. Since we have not actually created any change or intervention at this particular choice, merely choosing to race JV in lieu of varsity, our immediate measure of success will be whether they win on race day. However, we understand this is an academic exercise. Therefore, if we are to introduce a change or intervention for varsity, we believe measuring team cohesion, which so far has been a proven leading indicator of performance, would be a right element to pulse. We can specifically measure team cohesion through a team identity activity similar to the one we did ourselves at our intensive, where we rated our team identity dimensions. The challenges faced by varsity are not uncommon, and we explored other areas of team interactions where similar challenges could or have emerged. Practically, the list could be endless. However, one obvious group was the U.S. Congress, where it seems task conflict has given way to relationship conflict due to the lack of shared goals, measures of success, or indicators of productivity. Working teams, whether problem-solving, creative, or tactical, can be impacted by a lack of cohesion. Finally, study groups can also be impacted, causing lower quality deliverables and an environment less conducive to learning. In conclusion, the JV team was a classic example of the whole is greater than the sum of its parts as a result of extraordinary cohesion and trust. As we consider lessons learned, the case is an excellent example of the importance of cohesion and trust outweighing the aggregate of skills and talents. Thanks for watching our review of the ArmyCrew case. We look forward to further discussion, and we can't wait to reveal which Coach P ended up actually deciding in the spring of 2002.